Well, good day, everyone. Welcome into John 3:16 Podcast Studios. I've got some very special guests that I'm really excited about having here today. We've got Jimmy McGill from Next Step Recovery and David Willis from Link Church. How are you guys doing today?
Man, I'm good.
It's good to see you guys, man. We've had a really good day today.
We've been mind blown by what we've seen up here today, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to start out just by thanking you guys for coming up. And I think our day was really productive. It looks like there's going to be a lot of things going forward that John 3:16 and Next Step and Link Church are going to be able to pair up on to promote Jesus, promote recovery. I'm again just really excited to have you guys in here, and for all the people that are watching, I thank you on their behalf. So, some of the things for those of you watching that we've talked about today is how we can best help serve each other, just the way Christ came to this earth and gave us lessons on how to serve our fellow man. That's what we've been talking about today. John 3:16 has empty beds. That's one of the big topics we've been discussing today. And I think, what I'd kind of like to start with, Jimmy, this may be more you, and David, you too. If there's people that are out there watching, I just imagine people that are at that place where they realize, man, I'm not going to make it much longer living the way I'm living, and they're looking through different places to go, and they happen to land on our page and go to this podcast, and you got a chance to speak directly to somebody that's watching about why come to a place like John 3:16. What would you say to that person?
I mean, give God a try. What else do you got to lose, right? Like when you're actively using, you are stuck in this place of despair and desperation, and there's such a misconception. So many people think we're getting high because we like getting high, and that's just not the truth. Like when I decided to get help and get clean, I was at a place of misery. Like I couldn't even enjoy the bump I just did because I was worried about my next one.
That's right.
Right? Like the second I used, the insanity, the paranoia, the pain, it all took over. And, people call me all the time and we don't have beds. And so I'm like, you guys have a really phenomenal facility. And so I would say this, that for a long time, I didn't want to get clean because I thought life without dope would suck. But the truth is, life without dope was the beginning of living life.
Yeah.
And you guys have a really nice place. Like there's no words to describe the giganticness of what God, if that's even a word. Is giganticness a word?
We'll take it today.
That's part of the gym vocabulary.
Yeah, just add to it, man.
Yeah, it's like breathtaking, overwhelming, and it's fun. And so I'll tell you, I was blown away that you guys are really open-minded on quite a few things, like tobacco. Most places if you're working in a recovery space, you should understand that if you got 95% of people who are struggling with substance use also struggle with nicotine. And you're never going to get a person clean if they can't smoke a cigarette. Like they're not going to come.
Yeah. Right.
They will not come. Right.
That's right.
The other thing is it's free. There's not any waiting list. So if you're homeless and you're desperate, why wouldn't you pick up the phone and call? If it was the dope man, you'd call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So
yeah. And there's so many things in just the short 3 years that I've been here that I've seen change. We were initially just doing interviews on Sundays after you had to sit through a service. Now if somebody's ready to make that change, we're taking them throughout the week. We're making that change. The women's building that we went up there and looked at.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard the excuse from people, well, I can't go to rehab or whatever it is because I'll lose her or I'll lose him. That codependency they're stuck in. And now you can come in as a couple. Now, you're not going to get to see each other all the time, but you're going to get to work on a relationship with Christ at the same time, make the same strides. So David, for people that may be watching that might be thinking, man, I just don't know about all that Jesus stuff. You know what I mean? That just, and because I used to be one of those guys, man, you can't have any fun following Jesus. That's just for a bunch of straight-laced conservative people. What would you say to somebody like that?
I would say what Jimmy McGill says all the time: we make God cool and recovery fun. And I think it's one of those things that if I was telling someone after being here today about John 3:16, it would be two things that you guys kind of said already. Jimmy said about the willingness to adapt. I mean, Ryan Toggle brought us in here today to ask some questions about how can we get more people in these beds. It's not like he's asking that question to Jimmy because, hey, I need more money. This is free. Right. He's saying, how can we get more people to pull out of the pit? How can you help us get more people in here? It's the ability and the willingness to adapt and say, you know what, help us get people here because that's what we want to do. We want to see people get free. And then beyond that, I would say this: if you're looking for a faith-based program, which we know is one of the most highly successful programs there is when people are truly trying to get free from recovery, why not come to a place with beautiful facilities, a lot of acreage, get your stuff in order, and then even as we said today, look at moving into some form of transitional home or sober living or something like that. This is a great starting point for someone that needs to get clean. I mean, and needs help. And we always say, addiction covers, and we always want to think of alcohol and drugs, but man, that's only 33% of actually what is addiction. There's a lot more stuff out there that people struggle with than just that. And so as a pastor of a church, as a pastor of Link Church, if I had someone come up to me and they said, man, this is what I need. I need to be out there in a place where I can get away from, of course, I refer Jimmy and our local programs. But, man, after seeing this facility, there's nothing here someone can't do and couldn't find a way to do it. And thinking that just because it's God-based means they're not going to get what they need, as Jimmy said, give God a chance, man. You've tried everything else. Give God a chance.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever could have thought that I could have had as much fun as I'm having now following Jesus.
Oh, you're just getting started too, man.
Right. I just thought that's not fun. They've got all these rules they've got to live by. It's all this of stuff that you can't do.
But the truth is when you find the true freedom that God gives you, that so many people think, Christianity is this set of rules that are in place to keep you from not doing what you really want to do. But in reality, when you find God and you start living this life, you no longer want to do the things that you used to want to do.
That's it.
Your idea of freedom and living is a complete mind shift, right? Like it's a active change in your thoughts, your ideas, and your heart.
I don't give up a lot of the stuff I did because God made me. I fell so in love with him that I wanted to be more like him. I want to be like him. So what does that mean? Then if I want to be like him, I get in the Word, which you guys push heavily here at John 3:16 every day. I get in the Word and I say, how do I become more like Jesus? That makes me not want to be more like the world. As Corinthians said, I'm in this world. I'm not of this world.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So, yeah. It's him talking about if you seek me, I'll give you the desires of your heart. Well, the desires of my heart 4 or 5 years ago are not what the desires of my heart are today, So it's awesome to see the light. You guys got to go around and talk to a bunch of the residents. I enjoyed seeing that as you guys, not just standing back and us showing you everything that's about here. Y'all got face-to-face and talked to a lot of the guys that are actually working on putting their lives together. And, one of the things that I'm excited about, I know we've got graduates that watch our podcast all the time, is talking about what you guys are doing, down at Next Step. The potential help that we can give you guys, at least, we talked about how life changes the day after you leave John 3:16, and you need to be armed up and ready and know what to do. You've learned and put in place some good habits while they're here. How do we take those out to the world, make that transition out to the world? And that's where you guys kind of come in,
Yeah, for sure. I think, first, like, I would say let's look at the difference between discipleship and recovery.
Right.
Those are two very different things, right? Like
Absolutely.
discipleship is salvation, creating other Christians, right? Learning how to follow Jesus, bringing other people to Jesus. Recovery is staying sober from dope and alcohol and anything that's going to lead me away from Jesus.
Right.
Right. And so, and I love what David said a while ago. I don't want to go on a rabbit hole, right? But addiction is not about a drug. Right, like the drug is just a symptom of addiction.
That's right.
Like when you look at addiction from a scientific or a medical standpoint, even right, you're talking about compulsive behaviors, obsessive thoughts, and at the core of that, a spiritual selfishness. That it's me.
That's right.
Right? Like nothing matters. No lie that I tell matters. No consequences matter. That's why we don't get scared about committing a crime when we're seeking a sack, right? Because we're not afraid of the consequences. Yeah. That's why we're not listening to the prayers that people are praying over us. You can't beat us up, lock us up. None of that's going to stop us from getting high until we've had that just right butt whipping that, okay, the pain of staying the same outweighs the fear of making a change.
Absolutely.
Right? When that happens, we'll do something different. And so for next step, we have both a biblical approach and we have a recovery approach, right? Like we've got a great pastor with David who's giving our guys the bread of life. They're getting fed the word. They're growing spiritually and they're learning about addiction.
Right.
From a recovery standpoint, right? Like, okay, reading my Bible is not enough for me.
Right.
Like there's some action I got to get up and put in this because, okay, listen, you can have the best intentions in the world, but if you don't put action behind those intentions, you ain't had nothing but a good thought.
That's right. That's
you know what I mean?
Faith
like,
without works is dead.
Is dead.
Right.
That's it.
Right. So at next step, we're learning how to not get loaded when life comes along and knocks the wind out of you because it is.
Yeah.
No matter how long you've been clean. Listen, man, I've been clean 10 years, and let me tell you what my last 2 weeks look like. On Christmas Eve, my dogs got lost, whom I've had for years, and my entire life was turned upside down in the middle of a rainstorm. 2 hours later, we found our animals. On Christmas Day, my water heater exploded, and 40 gallons of water just destroyed my office. The next day, my wife tested positive for type A flu. The next day, my son got sick. Then my wife's grandmother passed. Yeah. And okay, that's 5 days, 6 days, right, in a row. Just and then I get put in Facebook jail, so I get demonetized.
Right.
Which for me, as a social media influencer, is substantial to a paycheck.
Sure.
Right, just stripped away.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm under spiritual attack. Right. Now, any one of those things by themselves would have been plenty enough for me to sprinkle some dope on my problems.
That's right.
But because of recovery, because of God giving me the gift of recovery, I now have a process to go through, right? Like I called my preacher, got prayed for, called my sponsor, got some common sense put into me.
Right.
Told me, okay, dummy, listen here. You think your life's bad now, you take a hit and watch.
Right. That's right.
You know what I mean? Like no matter what I'm going through,
Yeah.
CC, the second I sprinkle dope on it, it just got worse.
That's right.
Yeah.
It just got worse.
Yeah.
Right. And so that part, you
Yeah.
know, it's not just about the Bible study. It's not just about growing with God. It's how do I sustain my walk so that I can continue growing with God?
Yeah.
Because the second I put one in me, I'm gone.
Yeah.
You know, we talk all the time around here about just because you give your life to Christ and start following Him, that doesn't mean that these struggles aren't going to come against you. You know,
Amen.
and what we attempt to equip guys with out here is making them understand and helping them learn that life's problems are still going to come at you. 90% of life is not what happens to you, but how you deal with it and how you respond to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I know you see a lot of that in everything that you guys do, you know, and everywhere that you go. I just, you know, for people that are out there watching, I'm trying to constantly think outside of the box. Anything that I could do to draw people in. You know, I've talked to so many people about about the ministry and about Jesus and about getting, well, I know somebody that needs to be there. They're just not ready, And I know the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But I just want you to know that our time together today has really encouraged me that there's so much more that can be done. So much more that we can still continue to fight and struggle and scratch and claw for those people that don't have any hope.
Absolutely.
I know that when I came in here, I'll tell you and everybody watching that I didn't want to be here when I came here. We talked about it in a Bible study this morning. When you come to John 3:16, if you had an option to go anywhere else, you would go there. This is it's a last resort place, and looking back on that now, what a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
Right. So, for those that are watching, if you are looking for something, when I came, a lot of the guys, we do a hot seat, after they've been here for a week, and we sit them in front of everybody on the camp, and they get a microphone in their hand, and we talk to them, and we ask them, what's your name, where are you from, how many kids you got, what kind of family life you got, and then the big question is, what do you hope to get accomplished by coming to John 3:16? And it's, it invariably always goes back to, well, I'm just looking for a better relationship with Jesus. That's kind of the cookie cutter answer, and now that I've been here for a while, if I look back on when I was on the hot seat, probably said the same thing. I didn't know what I was looking for. I knew what I did not want anymore. I knew what that I wanted to get away from.
Well,
so,
why didn't you say that on the hot seat?
Well, I didn't know anybody in the room.
Right. See, that's the stigma, right? Like we want to say what we think you want us to hear.
What everybody wants to hear.
What are you here for? So I don't shoot dope no more and steal everything that I see.
Yeah. Right.
That's why I'm here.
Right.
Help me do that.
Right.
Because if I can't stop shooting dope, it doesn't matter about God. Doesn't matter to me.
Right.
I ain't trying to have. I can't have a relationship
That's
with
right.
anything but drugs.
Right. Yeah.
That's and people are scared to say that.
Yeah.
They want to say what they think everybody wants to hear. But listen, I'm not going to be in a relationship with Jesus. I'm not going to be in a relationship with my wife, my son, David. You ain't going to be my preacher unless I burglarize the church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you're not going to see me.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is.
Yeah.
That's why we need help. That's why we need God.
Yeah.
And we can't do it on our own. If we could do it on our own, people wouldn't stay stuck in addiction for 20, 30 years because they ain't out there doing it because they love it anymore.
I think that's why all our stuff, programs we're talking about John 3:16, we're talking about Next Step. How can we coincide? Even at lunch today, Brian said this about the church kind of pushing away addiction and recovery because it was an outcast thing. I mean, I've said this for years. As the church, we were guilty of, someone comes to the altar and gets saved, and then we pat them on the back and say, go get them, Tiger. You didn't need nobody to pat you on the back and say, go get them, Tiger. You needed help. That's what you needed. You needed recovery of some kind.
Right.
Now we have some resources finally in life. And if I was talking to someone out there today, I would tell them this, man, get into a program. Get that help you need. And just like we've talked about your story some today, Cece, if John 3:16 isn't enough, go to a transitional living, get into a sober living like Next Step, where you get the accountability after the program, where you get the drug testing, where you get navigating back into life, where you get a job and you're going back into things and you begin to live that life, but there's still an accountability there that helps keep you clean. Because sometimes that hard point, that hard stop, like we talked about, when you just leave the program and it's back to reality, it comes crashing down sometimes. So I think what we can do together is the big thing.
Yeah. I'll tell you guys, I've left, I graduated and was gone for about 3.5 years, came back, fell back into the pit or stepped back into it. And then stayed here for a year, did more, stayed longer than I did the first time, even became an instructor, and then left to go home and told myself, well, I've got to go home and be a husband, right? And that lasted 3 weeks, and I turned around and came back. Mm-hmm. And I've been here since, and I'm not going anywhere. And we're divorced now, but I remember both of those times before I left here. I knew inside of me that to give myself the best chances out there, I needed to go to a transition house. You know, I asked somebody that had one, the closest one to Little Rock that was associated with John 3:16 or endorsed by, I guess. I asked him about it, and he said, "No, I don't. We think you need to stay there." And I was like, you know, and I kind of got my feathers ruffled a little bit, so I left and altered my plan. Right. Yeah. So I've become a big advocate of telling guys here that, because it was told to me, whatever plans that you make while you're here, if those start changing once you leave, you're probably in trouble.
That's good.
You know,
That's a good thought.
Yeah, because you're doing your best thinking, or at least I always have while I'm here. Why would I think that because I've left here, my surroundings, being spoon fed the word every day, right? Am I going to start making better decisions?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I can tell people, here, and that's where I think you guys do such a good job, the way you have everything structured there. And next step, just the brief amount of what you guys talked about at lunch. I know it's a challenge, I know it is, because we don't deal with the kind of distractions that you guys, that your guys have there. So, but you guys are making it work, man. So awesome.
Yeah,
Rock on.
sure.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys again so much for being here today. Thank you for sitting down in here and visiting with us. And, man, I just look forward to the next time we can get together. And you guys are in Clarkesville, is that right?
Yep.
So Next Step Recovery, Jimmy McGill, and Link Church, Pastor David Willis. Thank you guys so much for being with us and coming out and spending the day here. I know y'all drove a long way, and I'm honored, and we just appreciate everything. So
Absolutely.
Until next time, you guys stay tuned.
I need you to soften